I was hungry for some Christmas cookies today, like sugar cakes and stuff like that. Always this time of year, my mom would make sugar cakes and chocolate chip cookies. Kind of reminds me of the old Christmas days. So she would be making sugar cookies and stuff out in the kitchen, and all of us kids would be at the kitchen table working on our list for Santa Claus. You always had to have a list. We used to go through Sears and J.C. Penney's catalogs. They would be about 2 inches thick, it seemed like at the time. Those were the big stores where people would normally do their shopping for Christmas and stuff. So we would be out there at the table, writing our list and getting ideas from these catalogs. Now you would see commercials sometimes on TV, so you might see the latest, greatest of the kids' toys that's coming out. But those catalogs were good ideas just to spark your memory of things that maybe you didn't see on a commercial. So there we would be the whole time she's making cookies. Gave us something to do. We were right there at the table and she's cooking away. And she would fill up a lot of these tins with cookies. It seemed like hours and hours of baking. Couple weeks before Christmas. That way the cookies would last throughout the whole season. So eventually it would come time to get the tree. Usually on a Saturday, a couple weeks before Christmas. And you have to remember, we lived in Pennsylvania, so it was real prone to having snow at that time of year. Seems like the snow has shifted a little bit more toward January and February. But back when I was young, it was really common to have snow in December. I remember times it used to snow around Thanksgiving up here in Pennsylvania. But it was going to be a Saturday because it was weekend and my dad would have off work. We would all pile in the car and it would be cold and snowy. Everybody would be all bundled up and stuff, heading out to pick the perfect Christmas tree. Had to be just right. Of course, the height of it had to be right because of the ceiling. But it was always a big adventure to get just the right tree. Then we would get the tree home. We would tie it on top of the car, and off we would go from the place where we bought it. And now it's time to get it in the house and start decorating, which of course meant a trip to the attic. The attic was always a mysterious place. It had like sections for each of the different holidays and stuff. So normally my brother and I would climb up into the attic. So we would set a ladder up and get through the hole in the roof and up into the attic. And we would start handing down the boxes of the Christmas decorations. So you would have all the light strings and the Christmas ornaments, the balls, and they were all glass and stuff back then, or neat things. I remember a set of the Christmas lights, though, particularly, where it had a long glass tube, like maybe 3-inch glass tube that was about as thick as a pencil or so. And it had a round metal base on it. And liquid was in this tube. And so you could see the bubbles coming up through the glass tube while they were lit, hanging on the tree. Those were always fascinating to me. But we would get the tree decorated, put all the lights on it, and of course, some of the lights didn't work. So each year, we would be troubleshooting them, plug them in the socket, lay them out on the floor, find out which bulb wasn't working, and get them to where they would all light. String them on the tree, put all the balls and the decorations on there, and tinsel. You would string tinsel and sort of throw it up onto the tree so that it would look like icicles hanging down over the balls and the lights and all the ornaments and stuff. We would get that done by evening or so on that particular weekend. And normally there would be a Christmas special that's going to show at like 7 o'clock at night or something. So everybody knew, oh, we'll have the tree all decorated by 7 o'clock. We're good, And then the tree would be set up, everything's ready, and we would gather around the TV to watch the Christmas special, whether it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Charlie Brown's Christmas special, Frosty the Snowman, and of course one of my favorites, The Grinch. He would always be on there too. Those were probably the four biggest of the Christmas specials. Over time, they developed more of them, but those were the four I remember the most from when I was really young. Also, a couple weeks before Christmas, it was time to do the shopping. So we had two fairly good-sized malls that were near our neighborhood. We would go out to those malls, and they would be packed. Parking lot full of cars. You go in these malls, and you could tell they were out to make sales. Everything was decorated, with all the lights and the trees and the ornaments, all the candy canes everywhere, and fake snow, and they would be playing Christmas music too throughout the whole mall. So you sort of got in the spirit of the whole Christmas thing and talking to people that you meet in the mall and stuff. That was pretty fun, and that's how we got all of the Christmas gifts and stuff. Well, then once we were done at the mall, off we would go back to the house, and people would start wrapping stuff up. Of course, when we were all really little kids, the wrapping was a little bit sketchy. Mostly we had to get our mom to help us out with that one because in the beginning we weren't real good at it. Over time, then we got to where we could make nice sharp folds on the paper and everything started to look good. Put the fancy ribbons and stuff on there. And then we would sit them all underneath the tree. But shopping and wrapping, that was big. Now, of course, a couple of weeks up to Christmas, we still had school. So we would do most of that stuff on weekends. But leading up to Christmas, at any given night, we could get a fair amount of snowfall. Everybody would watch the news with the weather part of the news on it. So everyone knew, on Tuesday it might be a really deep snow. The weatherman said that because you were always hoping that it was a deep snow, because that way they would cancel school. It was a free day off of school for us. So my brother and I would always get up in the morning and look out the window quick. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, that snow's deep. That's 1.5 feet of snow. Everybody would get toward the dining room, turn the radio on to the station that had the list of school cancellations. And they would be reading down through the list of the schools that got canceled. And you're hoping, of course, yours is on that list of canceled. Because the minute it was party time. Every kid in the neighborhood would grab their sled and head for this one large hill that we had. Now these were the sleds, they had the old wooden slats on them and the metal runners, so you want to have your sled in pretty good shape, wax up the metal runners and everything, and you could push the wooden bar at the front of the sled to steer it, and down the hill we would go. Some of the kids would be building snowmen and stuff over there on the sides of the hill, and we would be sledding. It could be 20 or 30 of us kids out there at a time sledding like that. So, a day of sledding and building snowmen and having snowball battles really beats going to school. So we were always hoping for that when it was wintertime. Now, closer and closer, then we're getting to school being out for Christmas vacation. That was huge, even though it seemed like, it was the week in between Christmas and New Year's, depending on when Christmas fell, which day of the week it was, whatever. But that was the longest holiday during the school year. And to young kids, it seems like an eternity of time off, and especially looking forward to Christmas and everything else. So, the night before Christmas, as kids, we always got to open up one of our Christmas presents that night. It was sort of a family thing that we did. So there everybody would be gathered around in the living room, knowing, oh, this is good. We're going to get one of our Christmas presents tonight. So our parents would hand us out one of the presents each, and one by one on the sofa there, we would go around opening the one present that we got. And it was plenty of time that we could play with those presents for a while before we had to go to bed, because Christmas Eve is when Santa Claus is going to show up. Now, you had to make sure that you left him some of those sugar cookies and milk out on the counter where he would see it. And all of our lists for Santa would be lined up in a row too, with the plate of the sugar cookies and the milk. So Santa would see the sugar cookies, and he would see these lists, and he would know what to leave at the tree. Now it's time to go to bed then on Christmas Eve. Yeah, we always had plans to try to wait up to see old Saint Nick. But no, never got a chance to spy him. And because we would fall asleep. Okay. So we fall asleep, but the next morning, either my brother or me would wake up and get all the kids up. So we would all get awake to go down to check out the Christmas tree. So we all slept upstairs. Here we would go creeping down the steps to see what Santa left under the Christmas tree. Now, the way you could tell was anything that wasn't wrapped meant that it was a gift from Santa, because the rest of the gifts that we bought within the family were all wrapped up in wrapping paper. So we would look for the ones that weren't wrapped on each of our kids' piles of toys there, of the presents. So, sure enough, oh, look, there's one that's not wrapped. That's from Santa, you know. You could always count on certain toys for Christmas. There were some that were universal, like Lincoln Logs. There was always a lot of toys that were designed around building and stuff you could do with your hands, you know, like creating stuff. So there were those Lincoln Logs, you know, that had the little notches in the wood, and you could make like cabins and stuff out of those. Of course, then in time, there were Legos also, because we built houses and stuff out of Legos. There was a mechanical type set with little nuts and bolts. The erector set with the little metal bars you could put the nuts and the bolts through and build little metal structures, not just plastic or wood. And eventually they even came out with some little motorized stuff on those little erector sets, and like gears and pulleys and stuff. It was always nice to be able to build stuff with those. Another thing you would always see too would be like Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head was big. You could plug in his ears and his nose and his eyes and everything and create different little characters. He was always on the list of stuff. There was another building one called Tinker Toys, where you had that wooden spool and you would stick those wood pegs in it and combine those. You could make some really bizarre looking structures out of that too. And then some of the years, I remember my brother and I might have got the slot cars. So you had the racetrack that you could plug together, and you had a little speed controller with a miniature steering wheel on it, and you could run these cars around this track and race them. That was always fun too, but you had to be careful around those corners or your little electric car would go flying off the track. Then that means the other guy won the race. So along with the train set too, we got some of those HO trains that would have the little metal tracks that you hook together. And I believe we even had a piece of the slot car with the train track that you could go through it. So the train could go around the outside, and then the car track would be going up across the little train track too. And that was always fun because you could set the train to just keep going around and then have a race, and you try to get, time it so you didn't get the train in the way of your slot car. There was also the Matchbox car. Every now and then you would get those little Matchbox cars. I used to have a carrying case, like a little plastic case that I could put my Matchbox cars in and stuff and keep them all organized, you know. I remember one year too, there was one of the things I definitely wanted for Christmas was something called a thing maker. This thing maker was pretty cool because you had like a die cast metal mold that you would squirt this plastic goop liquid into, fill up that mold, and then you would place that mold on a hot plate that came with the set. Now you would plug that hot plate into your receptacle and it would sit there very hot, and then you would take these little tongs that you had and put your mold in there with the plastic goop, which was different colors, so you could make like a snake or a huge flying insect, and you could make different colors like for his wings and his body and stuff. You'd put that on the hot plate, let it sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it was, and it would be cooked. And then you could let it cool and peel your little animal out of the mold. And it was rubbery. It was like, maybe you remember some of those things from like a 10 or 25 cent gumball machine. They would come in a plastic case, and it would be like a little rubbery, flexible insect or snake or bug or something. It was kind of like those, but the fact that you could make it at home, that was pretty cool. Yeah, and another thing, inevitably, that somebody got for Christmas was the Slinky. Everybody had a Slinky. You could make him go down the steps and stuff. It was just a cool little thing to have. Yeah, lots and lots of, over the years, different types of toys and stuff. But that was Christmas morning, and then of course, my parents would get up. They would hear all the commotion from us kids out there in the living room. And everybody would open up the rest of those presents that weren't from Santa Claus even. And by that point, us kids would be playing in the floor, and my mom and dad would head off to the kitchen and make some breakfast or something, and we would be there playing all day with stuff like that we got for Christmas. Well, that's about the end of that coffee. So, I'll wrap it up for now. Take care of yourself. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll catch you later. See ya.